We are super excited about the topic of today's video. We are talking all about property, investing in property, owning property, renting property. We got a lot of questions about it.
Yeah, investing in and leveraging property has been such a huge part of our story, and we're super excited to chat about it today. So welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, I'm Steph.
I'm Katie. This is little Theo. We are a married lesbian couple from Vancouver and the creators of Let's See the World. For those of you who don't know, we currently own 2 properties, and throughout our time together these past 10 years, we've done a few purchases and sales. So we're gonna be getting into all of it, telling you all about our properties, how we managed to purchase them, what we do with them, how we leverage them for income, and offering all of our tips on real estate.
First and foremost, before we begin, we definitely want to acknowledge the privilege that we have to even own any sort of property, especially in a market like Vancouver.
Yes, and at our age as well, to be able to own property. And a lot of it is not just a result of like making smart decisions and working really hard. It's also just a result of things like not having any debt and some generational wealth and having some help and things like that. So we just want to be super clear that we recognize what a privilege it is. Okay, to kick things off, let's start with where do we even begin? How do you get into the real estate market? And I know that it can be a bit overwhelming. For me, growing up, my parents didn't own our home. No one in my family owns property. So it was a whole new world to me, and it was definitely very overwhelming in the beginning.
Luckily, I grew up kind of watching my parents make different real estate deals and things like that, as well as my grandparents. So I'd kind of seen how it all worked, and my parents always encouraged myself and my sister to get into the real estate market. They always felt that it was a good investment, so it was definitely always a goal of mine from a very young age to own property. So one of the best things I learned early on is the best time to get into the real estate market was yesterday. So the sooner you can get into the market, the better, because typically what's going to happen is the market's going to go up, and if you get in on the ground floor, you're going to be able to ride that elevator all the way up versus trying to get in partway through, and it's just going to get harder and harder and more out of reach. And we've seen that with so many people our age who kind of wait, and then it's no longer attainable.
Definitely. So the sooner you can do it, the better. And sometimes that means not waiting for a property that is going to be your forever home or something that you're going to have for a long time. Maybe it's just like a starter place, and then you can work up to that forever home. Or maybe it's a property that you're not going to live in at all, but just something in a different market, maybe not even where you want to live, that you can rent out and then just kind of ride the market up, and then maybe later purchase something that you want to live in.
If you get into that market with something smaller, and maybe that's a studio apartment, but you don't have any intention of living there, you just have the intention of renting it out and riding up the market until you have more savings, then you can kind of get the place later on that you're going to live in.
Absolutely, and obviously making that first purchase, can be a lot of obstacles and a lot of things that make it difficult, and we're going to get into all of that and some ways that you might be able to find some help or support to make that first purchase.
Yeah, so one of the best ways to get into the market is to purchase something with the intention to rent it out. Basically, that means your tenants are essentially paying your mortgage down. So it's a great way to build equity.
Definitely, and that could look like either a long-term tenant or even short-term rentals if that's allowed on your property. We've done a lot of both, and that has really helped us to leverage our properties, and we're going to get into all that as well.
Of course, you want that property to be worth more when you sell it than when you bought it. So one of the best ways to do that is to pay attention to market trends. Also, if you're in a city, pay attention to construction projects and highway projects and other things that might be going into the city, like train stations or new transit in certain areas. That'll increase the value a ton. So if you can get in early in a place where there's going to be more going on in the next few years, then that's a really smart way to build a lot of equity and get a really good return on investment quickly.
For sure, and obviously no one can tell the future, but there are certain things you can look at, like I was saying, to kind of be able to predict, and often that can look like purchasing in kind of an up and coming spot, so you know that it'll really pay off down the line when you are looking to sell. So now let's get into our experience. Like I said, we currently own 2 properties, and the reason why we do, it all kind of goes back to the first property that Steph bought before we actually met, and everything kind of goes back to that first purchase that really set us up for what we have now.
luckily I had built up a pretty good savings pretty early on, and I knew that I wanted to get into the market. So I had kind of put that money aside with the intention of having a down payment for something. When I started looking, it was kind of for fun. And I mean, I love browsing the real estate websites. I don't know about anyone else. It's like my zen time. And so that's exactly what I was doing. I noticed an open house for a place that looked really great in the Commercial Drive area of Vancouver. I mentioned it to my parents, and my dad said, let's go see, you know, why not? What's the harm in looking? And we went there. It was perfect. I knew that it was a really great area to invest in because there are a lot of young families there. There are a lot of great restaurants. Transit is nearby. It kind of had all of those things, and just being slightly out of the downtown area of Vancouver just made for a really great place to invest in. Because I had that down payment set aside, I knew that I was able to go in with a pretty good offer. The whole reason I was able to set aside so much for my down payment was because I didn't have any student debt or loans to pay off, and also because in Canada you can pull from your RRSP, which is your Registered Retirement Savings Plan. So luckily my parents had put some money in there from a young age, and that money had grown, and I was able to pull a sizable chunk out of that RRSP. Combined with what I had saved up, I had my down payment and I was ready to go in.
Yeah, the down payment is really the biggest obstacle, and because Steph was able to do that on that first purchase, that really set us up for all of the other purchases down the line. And it's just a reminder too that everyone's in such a different position in terms of debt and help from family maybe. And so if anyone our age feels like they're not able to buy property and they're just not in that position, that's totally fine and totally normal. So this is just our experience, and everyone's experience looks different.
That first property served a lot of purposes for me, which was really great, because I think at the time especially, a lot of my friends, we were quite young, and everyone thought, what are you doing buying a place? You're going to be locked into this one location. You're not going to be able to do anything or go anywhere. And basically, I proved them all wrong right away, because I did live there for a little while. I lived there by myself. I had a roommate at one point. A friend of mine came to live there to kind of split the mortgage, which was great. And then when I decided I wanted to go travel, I rented out the place furnished, and that worked really well for me. And it showed that it gave me the freedom to go off and travel while still having not only my mortgage paid for, but a little extra income on top of the mortgage, which was fantastic because I was off in South America, and basically I was getting paid from my tenants to go off and travel. It was the first time that light bulb really went off that, wait a second, it's not just a place to live. I can really leverage this into some extra income for myself. And that's kind of what started this whole thing.
Yeah. Yes, I think that is such a good point to make, because a lot of people do really think that buying property kind of locks you in and it takes away your freedom, and it's like this big, huge commitment. But for us, it's really meant the opposite. It's really meant giving us more freedom to be able to do the things that we want in life. And so I think if you can look at it as something like that, then it really kind of shifts your mindset around what can become possible when you do invest in property. When Steph got back from traveling, that's actually when we met, and then about a year later, we decided to move in together. But because you already had such great tenants in your place, it was working out so well, they were paying down the mortgage and helping you build equity, we just decided to rent a place on our own, and that was what we did for the next few years. And that really meant that Steph could just keep that property and hold on to it until it was actually the right time to sell, rather than feeling pressured to like make a move or do something that worked for us.
All in all, I think I had that place for about 6 years. And luckily, I was able to sell when the market was super hot in Vancouver.
Yeah.
In the end, the value of the place basically doubled, which is amazing. So I'd love to say that when I bought it, I knew that this was all going to happen and it was all planned out. I mean, obviously, this is what I had hoped for, but it all worked out incredibly well. The timing was pretty much perfect.
Yeah.
We ended up having a lot of money to work with, and then that's kind of when we decided to go in on some properties together.
That's such a good reminder too, that if you're not pressured to sell, if you're not pressured by time, and you can really just wait for that perfect time, that's such a great way to do it, because before that, there was no reason why you had to. You could really wait for the perfect time, and it ended up benefiting you so much. So after that, the second property and the first property that we bought together was actually a home in Niagara Falls, Ontario. We had moved from Vancouver to Toronto, lived there for a couple of years, and then I actually got a job offer in Niagara Falls. And going out there, I had to relocate for it, and we looked at rental properties and what it would look like to move there. And then we looked at housing prices, and we thought, houses are so inexpensive here compared to the city and compared to the Vancouver market. And we thought, what if we could buy something and it could be a great investment for us for the future? And so that's what we ended up doing.
So we ended up buying a house that had the possibility to have a basement suite as well as the upper portion of the house. So our intention was to do a reno of the basement, and while we were living there, do short-term rentals downstairs. The renovation took a little longer than expected.
Yes, the house needed a lot of work.
Yeah, we ended up doing a lot of work on the house, but in the long run, I think all of it was worth it. So when we left, we decided to rent out the upper portion of the house and the basement as well. So that's where we're at right now. We've got the 2 rental suites in the house in Niagara.
Yes, we've had that home for about 6 years now. We only ever lived in it for 1 year, but it's really been good to us over the years. And one day, when it is the perfect time to sell, it's really going to be beneficial, because I think by now it's at least tripled in value in just those 6 years. It really is an up and coming area. So I think we were smart, but also we were just lucky to buy there when we did. It's gone up in value so much, so that was a great move for us.
Yeah, not only have houses in the vicinity of Toronto all gone up in price because of the proximity to the city, also one of the big things that is increasing the value of our home is the fact that the commuter train station is actually going in 2 or 3 blocks away from our house. So there will be, in a couple years, a train that goes directly into Toronto from Niagara Falls, which is just incredible and so good for the value of the home.
Yeah, I'm so glad we purchased that house when we did. And the great thing was that we could do it mortgage free because of the money from the Vancouver property that Steph had sold. We've been able to have that home mortgage free, which is amazing. And there was also money to put away for a future purchase, which I guess we can get into now, which was our next purchase, which was a condo in Vancouver that we've had now for 2 years.
Yeah, we knew we didn't want to be out of the Vancouver market for too long because it goes up and it goes up fast.
Yeah.
So we had that money waiting there for a down payment, and we were kind of scoping things out in the city, and our intention was to buy something smaller in order to rent it out full time and basically just be back in the market so that we could later sell it and get something a little bit bigger for ourselves.
Definitely. We were still traveling a lot at the time, so it was never intended to be a place that we would live full time, but something that would just allow us to be in the market and start riding it up again. So we started looking at the beginning of 2019 when we were kind of in a place to make another purchase, and the place that we ended up finding that we just kind of stumbled upon by chance was amazing. We fell in love with it. It was way out of our price range, not what we were looking for, but it just really felt like a place that we could actually live, maybe not full time, but somewhere that we could maybe live and then also rent out. And it was really lucky that the building we found actually allows for short-term rentals, so it really allowed for that exact lifestyle. A place that we could stay in when we were home in the city, and then we could also rent it out while we traveled. So it was just the perfect combination, exactly what we were looking for, and we really just needed to figure out how to buy it.
So basically, because we knew that the property could double as a place for us to live and also provide an income because of the short-term rentals, we approached my parents as investors to come in with the remainder of the down payment that we couldn't cover, but also give them a cut of all of the profits that we're making with the rentals. Luckily, they were in a financial position to be able to do that, and they were happy to contribute because it was also an investment for them that they could immediately make money on and also have a stake in the equity of the home.
Absolutely, and this is a really good example of asking for help when you need it, and there's no shame in that. Getting a co-investor can be a really great way to get in the market and to make some purchases, because that down payment is really the hardest part, and if you don't have enough, finding someone else who can cover the other part of it, who can get a stake in the property, it's really a great way to do it. Obviously make sure that all the paperwork is drawn up and everything is done like that. But in our position, like that was the only way we could have made it happen. And for a lot of people, I think that's the only way. And so don't be afraid to just ask for help and look for support to find a way to make it happen. So we've had that property for 2 years now. It's served us very well. For that first year, we rented it out a lot when we were off traveling. And then of course, when the pandemic hit, it meant that we had a place to live because otherwise we wouldn't have. So we have been living there full time. It's not as much of an income property anymore, but it is a home for us, which is really nice. And I'm sure we'll have it for many years to come.
Obviously with the pandemic, things are a little different with our travel lifestyle,
Yes.
but under normal circumstances, we are really able to leverage both of our properties in order to make our travel work.
Definitely. Having that additional rental income has really allowed us to live this lifestyle for the past while. It allows us to work for ourselves. It gives us that extra cushion while we're building our business. It gives us the freedom to be able to travel full time, and it's really just kind of the secret to our life.
Yeah, basically with our rentals, it means that when we're not there, we're making money from our property. So that means we can then go spend money staying somewhere else, but not be paying rent basically in 2 different places. One of the other things we've done occasionally is home exchanges, which is same kind of idea. Instead of paying for a place to go stay, you offer up your house and then you can go stay in someone else's house, and then it works out perfectly for both people.
Yes, there's so much more we could go into on that. So if you do want any more content about like leveraging property for income, renting it out, doing short-term rentals on Airbnb, we've been Airbnb hosts now for a while. And if you want any more content on that, I feel like that could be its own video. So let us know in the comments below if that interests you.
So that kind of wraps up our past and current experience. We definitely have some plans for the future and some ideas that we're kind of kicking around. So we'll definitely have to see kind of what happens and where those go. It's exciting.
Yes, and we'll be sure to share, obviously. So now we're going to go into some of our top tips for investing in property. Our first tip is to make sure that you have a great realtor. It really makes such a big difference, especially if you're not as experienced, this is maybe your first purchase, to have someone that can kind of walk you through it. I found that really helpful because it was all so new to me, and having someone that could just really kind of help us and give us advice and just sort of support us through the whole process, I found that so valuable. So if you need a great realtor in Vancouver, we can recommend ours. I'll leave his information in the description box below. But just making sure wherever you are that you really find someone that you trust, someone who's experienced, and someone who knows what you're looking for.
So tip number 2 is don't be afraid to ask for help.
Definitely. I think, especially in our generation, a lot of people can be like too proud to ask for help, but I feel like most people we know who are millennials, especially who live in Canada where the market can be crazy in the cities, pretty much everyone we know has had some help in buying their property. Yeah. So it's not unusual. If you can't do it on your own, that's nothing to be ashamed of. A lot of people get help, and if you have help available, then definitely take advantage.
And remember that help doesn't necessarily mean you're asking for a favor. A lot of the time, that could be a great investment for someone, and if they've got a little bit of money, you've got a little bit of money, pool that money together. As long as it's a good working relationship, then you could end up getting something really great. And I mean, you see that all the time with investors in businesses. No one is going into it 100% by themselves. And then if you can get a few investors going, then you're going to get the maximum profit. So if you can kind of stretch your budget a little bit, even by getting something a little bit bigger or in a better area, etc., it's a great opportunity for both parties to make a little bit of extra money and have a really great investment.
And then tip number 3, our last tip, is just leveraging your property in any way that you can. That's made such a big difference for us over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the reasons why we've been able to travel full time, because like I said, when we aren't here, or we aren't in Niagara, we're able to rent those places out, and that means we're not spending a whole bunch of extra money on accommodations wherever we are. It also means we're able to do home exchanges. So if you can't do short-term rentals or long-term rentals for that matter with the place that you have, then look into home exchanges. It's a great opportunity to be able to go and stay somewhere for free, essentially, by offering up your house in exchange.
Definitely. There are so many ways to get creative with leveraging your property, and again, we could do a whole video just about that, so let us know if that interests you, but that's definitely one of our top tips.
Definitely.
So that concludes today's video. Hopefully that gave you a bit of a sense of just our experience over the years, what it's meant for us, and also hopefully you learned something new.
Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. We put out a new video every Friday, so hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out.
Yes, we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching.